had the opportunity. Died a couple of days after birth, died as an infant, all of the different situations, lived in a land where they didn't have the gospel. All of them get the opportunity to hear the gospel and to make some kind of decision as to what they're going to do with it. And as he says, which I find just absolutely fascinating, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. Even those that are going to go with Satan into the lake of fire and brimstone are going to confess that he is God.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, that basically that Section 85 is really commentary on the trumps that will sound. And so you get more information and more understanding about what's happening at that particular point in time when you put the two together. And also to your point where he was talking about it, he kind of, he's correcting some of the mistakes in thinking, that everyone will get an opportunity. Whereas, looking at the Bible alone, you don't always necessarily get that. You could, if you went to it, the right passages and studied it comprehensively enough, you could come to the same conclusion, but it's much harder to do so. Whereas when we have the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, it definitely makes it more apparent. Okay, move on here. And it's, I don't know, I tried my best with that picture, but hey. It's really hard sometimes to think about what you imagine it would be, if you know what I mean. Because to me, it's just kind of like what the scriptures would say. It'd be that great and terrible day. And not terrible from necessarily awful, but you might, how can I say it? If we really knew, if we really understood, you might be a little bit more thoughtful, respectful. It might really grab you a little bit more about what's going on and where we're at and so forth. All right, verse 32 to 32b. Would someone like to read that? Or 33b, excuse me. Would somebody like to read those 3 verses? Yeah, Brother Don.
And again another angel shall sound his trump, which is the 6th angel, saying, She is fallen, who made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. She is fallen, is fallen. And again another angel shall sound his trump, which is the 7th angel, saying, It is finished, it is finished. The Lamb of God hath overcome, and trodden the winepress alone, even the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of the Almighty God. And then shall the angels be crowned with the glory of his might, and the saints shall be filled with his glory, and receive of their inheritance, and be made equal with him.
Okay, what are your thoughts? Why do you think it's important that the Lord is saying here that the Lamb of God overcame and basically overcame by himself? What do you think the significance of that is? Brother Don?
Well, it goes back to the 3rd chapter of Genesis, and the Lord said, Who shall I send? And of course Satan says, Send me, and I'll say, blah, 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 blah. And the Lord says, No, send me, and thy will be done. He didn't say, Let me be your co-captain and do this, or give me a legion of angels to accomplish this. send me, and thy will be done. And so he did it alone. That was the task he accepted. And we go to John, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son. He didn't send a legion of angels or whatever. He sent Jesus. He is the fulfillment of the law. And the law is that where there's sin, there will be death. And he fulfilled that law for all of us. And so he accomplished the task of not only being the sacrifice for mankind, but instructing mankind as to the path in which they can come back into the Father.
Okay, so you're saying that what he was doing was a prototype for everyone else, meaning that he didn't have anybody collectively necessarily helping him. I mean, you could argue the apostles helped him, but I can show you where they didn't. You know, I know they wanted to help him, but I know their heart was in the right place. I don't judge them that way, of course. But they didn't. And it's important because if this is the prototype, what does that mean for everyone else?
When he was on the cross, he said, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? That wasn't just him lamenting the situation he was in. He was quoting Psalms.
That's right.
And that chapter, which starts with that, explains everything that the Lamb has to do to be the sacrifice. And the Pharisees that were standing there who knew the Scriptures by heart knew exactly what he was saying. And so it not only was that fulfillment of that Scripture, which was the prophecy of his coming, but it explained that he was alone. He took the sins of the world alone. And he did it because he yielded himself to the will of the Father.
Yeah, yeah. It was important for him to do that, and I think the bigger point that I want to draw out of this is that as much as help I would like to have, there is no collective salvation. I stand at the judgment bar alone, and I pray that when I do, the only person that can stand there with me is Christ. And he can say, well, he's going to stand there anyway, but I'm just saying, I want him on my side in the respect that, he can say, that my blood has covered his sins. So the challenge that I think that we have, especially in modern day theology and where people are at, is just that they get this idea that it's completely collective, and it's not. Now, certainly, we all can minister to each other. We can all help shape each other's trajectories by helping each other, that ministry and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's your agency that hasn't been taken away that determines where you're at and where you're headed. All right. Anything else you want to pull out of those? Yes, Brother Craig.
Uh, 33b, I didn't remember the part that said, and be made equal with him. I didn't remember that was part of the blessing and or equation. So what does that mean?
So to me, I believe that what that means is to be equal does not mean to be the same, or in a mathematical argument, you can look at that and you can say, now we're equal to the exact same sum. But it doesn't mean that you are Christ at that point. You don't become, that's where I feel that, like when I was showing you guys that chart that I showed in section 85 of basically object theory of, set of all real things and so forth, and we are all a component. We're made up of celestial elements, but that doesn't make us God. And even though they can become equal with, does not mean they are. And I think that's the problem, because like I say, if we're looking at mathematics, it's a different argument. Okay, yeah, yeah. And then Carl, after you're done.
Equal means you receive a fullness of that glory.
Mm-hmm.
You do not become God. You receive a fullness of celestial glory, which is God's glory, or you receive a fullness of terrestrial glory, which is Christ's glory. But you do not become a God. That's where our brothers in the LDS fail. There is one God, and there is one Jesus Christ, and there'll never be any other. We receive a fullness of that glory, and thereby equal to. But we're not, like you said a moment ago, we don't become God.
Right, and that's the problem with, really, Brigham Young was a poor theologian. He just simply was. I'm not trying to be disparaging. He just was a poor theologian. He would draw conclusions by seeing different things of that nature and assuming, just like what we were talking about. And that's what, obviously, we see the Utah brothers and sisters. That's where I believe they're in error. Yes.
I believe that refers to the inheritance,
Mm-hmm.
not to who I am, but my inheritance is the same as Christ.
Yeah.
He's part of the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that means when it says be made equal with him, that our inheritance becomes celestial glory.
So, not to jump ahead to section 90, but you know how it is when you get stuff in your mind, you just want to get several whiteboards and start saying, that's a great point, and start mapping it all out, because you look and say, for instance, John 17, and you see in John 17, what does he say? He says he gives them a portion of thy glory so that they can become one with you as I am one in you. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Oh, okay, but what is glory? What's the glory he's talking about? Well, section 90 says, it's light and truth or intelligence, and referring to the intelligence of God, not of man, because that's just a crayon drawing on the eternal refrigerator of life. It's very crude, very, very crude. Just a bunch of scribbles up there, and look, God, look what I did. Isn't it beautiful? And he's just looking at it and going, okay, yeah, it was nice. Any loving parent would do. Yeah, they just, that was nice drawing, but, it's really just a bunch of scribbles when you look at it. There's a whole lot there in that respect. So appreciate all your comments on that. Any other thoughts? I don't want to leave it here without. Okay. Verse 34. Somebody want to read that? Not a lot of commitment there, just one verse. Okay. Do you want to do it, Carl? Okay. You're sitting close enough, so.
And then shall the first angel again sound his trump in the ears of all living, and reveal the secret acts of men and the mighty works of God in the 1,000th year.
So the question is, do you want to be there for that day? What's that? Yeah, right. It would help explain a few things. And what were you going to say, Don?
Not if I was living in it.
No, not if you were living in it. Yes, I would agree. I know that there might be just a few people that might be a bit nervous about the secret acts of men being made known public in a all-encompassing way. So. And I think it's interesting that he says the works of God in the 1,000th year. Isn't that interesting? Yes, go ahead.
Not to spoil anything, but really he explains this in the in the next verse, he goes into detail pretty well.
He does. You know, I feel like it's one of those things I don't know. Those of you in here who are educators, I'm always kind of think it's good to sit and from where you are and the vantage point you are, kind of decide, or kind of think about what's being said and what would you think it is and so forth, and then come to it. Because I feel sometimes if you run to the answer, it's not as impactful to you. If in verses you had to kind of work some of it out in your mind, and then you go, oh, that's why that is, it's yeah. I'll go on here to 35. 35a to 35c. Somebody like to read those 3 verses? Yeah. Brother Carl, go ahead.
And then shall the second angel sound his trump and reveal the secret acts of men and the thoughts and intents of their hearts and the mighty works of God in the 2,000th year. And so on until the until the 7th angel shall sound his trump, and he shall stand forth upon the land and upon the sea, and swear in the name of him who sitteth upon the throne, that there shall be time no longer, and Satan shall be bound, that old serpent who is called the devil, and shall not be loosed for the space of 1,000 years. And then he shall be loosed for a little season, that he may gather together his armies. And Michael the 7th angel, even the archangel, shall gather together his armies, even the hosts of heaven.
Okay. And of course, it goes on to D, E, and F, but I can't fit that on a slide. So what are your thoughts on those verses there?
Well, the fact that it's the mighty works of God through all of these things indicates to me that God is an active participant in everything that's going on. We're not doing this all by ourselves. And because he's an active participant, he knows exactly what's happening and what's in the hearts and the minds of men. And he's going to bring all of that out at the day of judgment. You're going to have to answer for that. You can't, as Carl said earlier, call in sick, or you can't do anything like that. God is an active participant and being very involved in what people are doing so that he can do those things that need to be done. And then we have to answer for what we're thinking and what we're doing and why we didn't come up to the celestial level.
Yeah, what I see in all of this is I see that I see God really giving us all these allegories, prototypes, whatever you want to call them, of how he's basically working with us. So just like when a baby is learning to walk, the parent is there. Sometimes you're hanging on to the tips of the hands, sometimes you're encouraging them to get up on their own, depending on where they are in the development cycle of that, or maybe they're just learning to crawl at that point. And the Lord is actively involved in that at all points of that. He's never taken his eye off you. Yeah, you are going to slip and fall and bump your head. And it's not like he didn't tell you. It's not like he didn't try to protect you from that, but you did it yourself. And that's just a part of our development and our learning and so forth. And even though we don't like it, and I've had this discussion many times in the world with other people. Without pain, you would never know and understand joy and peace and love and all these other things. You need the opposite. You have to have it. That's just, it's the contrast is what we need to see, so we can divine from the good, from the light, and so forth, as he says. Any other thoughts? Okay. 35D, E, and F. Somebody like to read those? Oh, Craig. Brother Craig? He pointed at you. Yeah, Craig raised his hand.
I thought, man, it's just like when you're bidding on something, I scratched my head and I got volunteer. I had a good first grade teacher. She taught me how to read. So, and she was a member of the church, by the way,
Oh, fantastic.
up in Davenport, Iowa. Mrs. Shippey, Mrs. Bonnie Shippey. Anyway, and the level. He's not level. He's crooked. And the devil shall gather together his armies, even the hosts of hell. And that's awesome sounding, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And shall come up to battle against Michael and his armies. And then cometh the battle of the great God. And the devil and his armies shall be cast away into their own place, that they shall not have power over the saints any more at all. For Michael shall fight their battles, and shall overcome him who seeketh the throne of him who sitteth upon the throne, even the Lamb. This is the glory of God and the sanctified, and they shall not any more see death. Amen.
So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is just merely language? Do you think this is really going to happen? Do you think that maybe there's things that were in the first few verses that, not these three, but the others, that would point to why that this would happen? We looked back at some of these. Or even going back even further, into some of this, basically, well, I'll just, won't run you through that. I'll just say what I mean. The fact that all the secret works of men, and now you're gonna see the power and glory of God. What do you think that does to deception and facsimile and lies and so forth? I think that would eradicate them more or less.
I mean, we're told the light of God, will reveal all, and basically, I believe that it'll cleanse all. So, also, I don't remember which one it was, but Mary Lynn's helped me. I've read several books about people that have supposedly died and seen works of God and have returned, and they tell their story as best they can. In one of them, it was a little boy, and he came back and he was telling what he had seen, and he said, and I saw a great battle, and Dad, you were fighting. And he said, oh, am I going to fight? He says, oh yeah, you're all going to fight, because we ought to fight against the devil. And that just really hit me, that's like, wow, we want to be in the right army.
Yeah.
And we will fight. But Michael, the archangel, is that Adam or Noah? It's supposed to be Adam, isn't it, Michael? Anyway, he will fight with the power of God and the glory of God, and will overcome all that is, that is set at defiance to God. And that That's wonderful. I mean, how many times have we longed for, oh Lord, there's so much evil. How long? How long will you put up with it? I'm done now, type of thing. And here it is, right here. All evil will be destroyed and neutralized and nullified and cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. So hang in there. The Lord has great plans and promises, and we just want to be on His side.
Yeah, it's we always kind of assume that the Lord isn't patient sometimes. Maybe He has the impatience that we do, and that's just really not true. Especially, was it 3rd Jacob? He talks about how He waits long for that precious fruit, and he has the ability to wait, and He knows when it will be ripe. And so, whether ripen to iniquity or ripen to righteousness, He knows that, and He longs for that, for the righteous to become ripe. Yes, Brother Carl.
It states that this is going to become the battle of the great God. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be very long. I mean, the Lord has put in about, or Joseph, as he was giving this, put it in about one sentence, and the devil and his armies shall be cast away into their own place. I think the Lord is going to show us that His patience has ended, and He's going to put the devil in his place where he should be. He's let him roam around and do his thing for however long it's been, and now he's going to say, all right, you've messed around with these people long enough, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be, well, you better do this or you're going to happen, no, it's done. This battle, come up against me, that's okay. I'm gonna put you in your place. That maybe sound a little, what I'm trying to say, vindictive.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Lord has the right to do that, but maybe not in the context we might think about it. But it's righteous judgment is what it is.
Right, exactly. Understanding His compassion is difficult to do unless you can see it through His eyes. If you can see what's going on in this world through pure eyes, then you understand. Trying to view what He's doing through man's eyes will all but disappoint you and confuse you, for sure. And as far as how long it takes, how long does it take for light to dispel darkness? It's practically instantaneous. At least it seems like it. And no, I'm not going to say 186,000 miles per second, but I'm just going to say that it's instantaneous. It's amazing that when the truth is there, the knowledge is there. And here again, this comes back to, like I was referring to back in section 90. And then also in John 17. I'm going to give you a portion of my glory so that you can be one with me. But once you're one with Him, that light and truth, which is that glory, now you understand. There isn't any question in your mind. You understand it. In 3 or 4 dimensions, you understand. There isn't any question in your mind. And I'm sure each of you have had experiences with the Lord where the Lord told you something and you understood it so well at that moment in time that there just wasn't a question. This is exactly what I need to do. Now, it doesn't mean that over time that memory fades a little bit, unfortunately. I feel like our minds are kind of a colander. You're pouring water into it, and it just kind of pours out over time. But that's unfortunately what we're at. And I look for the day where that doesn't happen necessarily. All right. Any other thoughts along that line? Okay. Verse 36a to 36c. Someone like to read those? Sorry, that's a little small, but yeah, Brother Carl.
Therefore, verily I say unto you, my friends, call your solemn assembly as I have commanded you. And as all have not faith, seek ye diligently, and teach one another words of wisdom. Yea, seek ye out of the best books words of wisdom. Seek learning even by study, and also by faith. Organize yourselves, prepare every needful thing, and establish a house, even a house of prayer, a house of fasting, a house of faith, a house of learning, a house of glory, a house of order, a house of God, that your incomings may be in the name of the Lord, that your outgoings may be in the name of the Lord, that all your salutations may be in the name of the Lord, with uplifted hands unto the Most High.
Okay. Well, there's a lot in there. Would you agree? Those 3 verses? Do you see some definitions in there? He's defining things for you. One obvious big one. Go ahead. Mm-mm. If I do that, then this becomes a lecture model, so
That's
I
not a
don't want that to
problem.
be the case.
Seek learning even by study and also by faith.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord will reveal to us the mysteries of the kingdom. But that doesn't mean we're going to understand them completely. Just as we were talking a minute ago about receiving the fullness of your glory, receiving your inheritance, and you become like unto him, you don't become him. So seek learning by study and also by faith.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to understand all of it, so accept it by faith, because I'm God, and I said this is how it's going to be, and this is how it's going to be. And so we need to understand that, as was made mention a minute ago, we were talking about the armies, make sure you're on the right side. The adversary has been one constantly of deception, and he is trying to deceive man to to take man away from God. That's the only goal he's got. And what a pure effort and frustration the devil and his armies are going to go up against Michael and his armies. They already know they're going to lose.
But the question is, do they? Because
Well,
you
I
got to
don't
remember,
know.
the person they're following is a liar.
Well, that is true. That is true. But nonetheless, my point is that we need to study, but we also need to understand we're not going to comprehend it all, so we have to accept it by faith as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of glad that he didn't put in there, seek learning even by, running into a brick wall, punishing yourself as much as possible, those kinds of things. No, he gave us the most excellent way to go about that, which is to study, and then also by faith, which I would interpret also to be by experience. And those are the ways that he's asking you to do that. Brother Carl.
Usually, and I think for most of us in here, when we came to that point where we wanted to be baptized, we were probably about 8 years old. There's no way we could understand all that the Lord was expecting of us, except that we saw people around us doing what we were being taught that we should do. And so we accepted that on faith. And as we grew into the church, we grew in our faith, and we also grow into our understanding. The other thing I think is so important here is that in this play, he talks about wisdom twice. Isn't that one of the spiritual gifts?
It is. It's the highest gift.
And probably more important than knowledge.
It's in the order of hierarchy. You go to section 46.
Yep.
It's listed first.
Yep.
And it's always considered in hierarchy of that as the
That's
highest
right.
gift.
And so he's talking to us and saying, you know, that's the important thing we have to do when we get here in our classes and in our preaching and whatever we might be doing in our homes and so on, is that we try to get to those words of wisdom that will bring us to that point where our sanctification will fall into place.
Yeah. What other definitions are in there? This is all excellent. I agree with everything you've said. So one big one in there. Brother Morgan?
I am looking at this kind of in the timeline of where the saints are and when this was given, you know, etc. And I kind of think you, beginning of the class, you really, I think, hit something, you know, the nail on the head, and the fact it's like, this is the refocus, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that last set of verses dealt very much with what we could call spiritual warfare, if you will.
Yes.
And now we're getting into, okay, saints in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how the spiritual stuff that I've called you to do bleeds into the temporal.
Right.
And that 36b, he's basically letting them know that spot that's dedicated, that's what you need to build. That's the definition of the temple.
Yes. Absolutely. What is a house of God? Well, there you go. If you had a question, 36b tells you that's what a house of God is.
And that's why he's saying, you know, prepare every needful thing. Okay, you guys need to prepare with the resources you have to build this house.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good. Anything else in there? But I'm glad you brought the context back to that, because I was going to have to do that same thing. It's like, this is why they needed to know, because the Lord's preparing them for the temple. What is it? Why is it? Where are we going? Yeah. Morgan?
This is also setting up something called like the School of the Prophets.
Yeah.
He's very clear on the fact of seek ye out of the best books words of wisdom. We're blessed in the fact, I don't know, I can't speak for today, right? But with the younger generations,
Yeah.
but education in those days was not a right.
Mm-hmm.
It was a privilege. And being able to learn and you know, do math beyond your fingers was not something that was, you know, promised or mandated to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of our, you know, past saints, they were lucky to read. It was a fact of life back then. So there was a learning curve of having to learn, you know, what really how to study out of the best books, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. You went to a schoolhouse to obtain that knowledge, right? Or that intelligence. If you're going to get godly intelligence, where would you go?
You would go.
What's that? Well, right, but the temple. If we're talking about, you know, it's one thing that I can read the godly knowledge, but if I don't have the Spirit upon me, if I haven't made the sacrifice to the point, I'm not trying to split hairs there. I'm just trying to say that the reason for the temple is that we can be in His presence, and all of a sudden, these words that we read lift off the page and become three-dimensional. And now we understand them to a depth we never thought we could, where we have that intelligence on loan from Him. Yes, Brother Carl.
I'm glad the Lord gave Joseph the word best. And I think we have to be careful of that. Because the world's idea of what is best is not so. I remember going for an interview to go on a church appointment. And one of the apostles sat across from me at the desk, cleaning his fingernails, and asked me, what theological books have I been reading? That was his one question to me. That was the only question he had for me. The interview was done. And I walked out of there and I found my wife and I said, come on, we're going home. I've had all this I want. And we went home. I didn't finish the interview because if that's all they had for me, that wasn't what I was after. I thought there were a lot of other questions they should have had. But the best books, we know they relied on what they thought was the best books, and we are now where we're at. Because the church fell apart. Because it began to depend upon what they thought, what the world thought was the best. And it wasn't. Many of those books that they were talking about talk directly against our scriptures. No, and so we have to be careful when we're deciding on what is best that we don't get ourselves caught up in the same kind of situation.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me of the, a lot of times when they talk about what's a good book, I see this all the time in the business world, it's always the bestseller. Just because it's the bestseller doesn't make it the best book. Okay, that's the frustration part. Now, I do realize that in times past, the Bible was the bestseller, but it was the best book because of its content, not because people just being sold. And I think sometimes that's missed in the grand scheme of things, for sure. For sure. Well, looks like we're right at time. So thank you all for your participation, and let us make preparation for this service to come.